1, 2, 3, 4.
So good morning, James. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. And I want to thank you so much, first of all, for making time in your schedule to talk with me today. And I am delighted to have you on the More Than Lipstick podcast.
Well,
So,
thank you for allowing me to share with your wonderful audience and spend time with you. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful platform that I've been following for quite some time now. Super, super excited, even though I am more than lipstick. Or can I say that?
you can because you're an ally. You are an ally and an advocate, and I can inform my audience just so they know, and in all transparency, James, as I affectionately call JB, and as many of us do reference you as JB, we go way back in the time machine, like what, 25 years, I think it is, almost.
I, I refuse to confirm or deny how long we've been in the trenches.
In the trenches, it is. The trenches, it is. And that is exactly why we are on this call today, or on this cast today, because you and I were having a conversation about our journey and
Right,
how very
right.
similar our journeys have been, and quite honestly how we have supported each other, through this career, corporate America, and now as entrepreneurs and speakers. And so I wanted to get you on this panel today to have this conversation.
Here we are.
Here we are. So let's go. Let's dive into it. So, first of all, for my audience, please give me a little bit of a background on, where you came from and where you are today, and then we'll just jump in with some questions.
Well, like you, and I don't know how many of the audience, I spent the vast majority of my career in the hospitality industry for one of the largest DMOs. We like to use acronyms in our industry, Destination Marketing Organizations. And from there, I transitioned to entrepreneurship. It's interesting that that happened. I had a job interview in college, and the company, we went through 3 rounds of interviews, and the guy said, I want to hire you, but you're an entrepreneur. I would hate to spend $250,000 to get you onboarded, and then you leave me to go start your own thing. Of course, it took 25, 27 years for it to come to fruition, but here we are. And so currently the company name is called the Exchange Zone. And it simply means, if you're familiar with track, how we take this baton that's passed from one teammate to the next, to the next, to the next, and get it across the finish line without dropping. We want to make sure that champions don't drop the baton. And it all happens in the Exchange Zone. Customers, both internal, external, team building, all of that. Just make sure whatever we do, we don't drop the baton. So that's the Cliff Note version of where we are right now.
I love it. I love it. And it ties directly into your story because you're so modest because you didn't even talk about how do you get the theme of the baton, but you were an all-star American track runner, I believe it was within Southern University.
That's what they say. I was all American in track and field. Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day. Okay.
Back in the day.
But there's
Yeah,
still, but principles obviously that still apply, and that you were
absolutely.
able to transfer those skills into your now career as an entrepreneur and a speaker, an MC, a corporate coach. The list just kind of goes on and on. So, transferable skills, I think, is one of the key things that I'm hearing just within your introduction. So.
Right, absolutely. We have to make sure, even in everything that we do, even from corporate America to entrepreneurship or vice versa, or whatever it is, that we don't drop the baton. And so, yes, I did run track at a pretty high level, and there's some things that we learned. But one of the things that I discovered that has been a theme or a thread through my life is disconnection. I don't like disconnection. And so being able to take that, not liking disconnection, whether it's with customers or friends or family or sales or internal teammates or external teammates or whatever. It's when you drop the baton, when this doesn't get to where it's supposed to be, you can not only not win, you can't even complete the race because you're disqualified. So how do we avoid disqualification? We avoid disqualification by making sure that we stay connected to whatever it is that we're doing. And so, yes, even though it gets rocky and we have to slow down sometimes, speed up sometimes, we make sure that we don't become disconnected. So yeah, we took the track metaphor, brought it into what we're doing now. So we share with the audience across the world about the exchange zone and not dropping the baton.
So I have a couple questions for you that I wanted to hear from you, and I want my audience to hear. I think it's going to be a great value to them. But when we think about this transition point, right? Because, just to kind of level set, there's a lot going on in the US today in terms of employment and layoffs and the shift from DEI and all these things that are impacting us as people, as Black people in corporate America. And I wanted you to share with us, in terms of being in the corporate trenches, what was that moment that you realized that it was time for you to pivot? I know that you said that the person that interviewed you 20 plus years ago saw it in you, but it took you at this point for the past few years to transition. But what was that moment that told you it was time to pivot?
There really wasn't this particular moment. When you work in corporate America, you see things, you experience things. But what really got me is every day I would go tell my kids. So I have two kids. And you're raising kids in this world and you tell them, go be great. Go be all you're created to be. Go be everything. Don't be afraid to leap. Don't be afraid to jump. Don't be afraid to be great. And one day, or a series of days, as I'm dropping my son off at school, I'm looking in the rearview mirror telling him, go be great. Go be all you're supposed to be. And then the mirror hit me. And are you doing that? Are
Mm.
you being as great as you're supposed to be? Are you doing everything that you've been created to be? Are you doing what you've been called to be? And it made me reflect. And as I reflected, I'm like, okay, so if I'm good at what I was doing. I mean, I was winning awards and meeting numbers and all the stuff. But I kept looking. I'm like, in 20 years, what does this look like? In 10 years, what does this look like? Am I being all that I'm supposed to be? So then I went through this process of self-evaluation and self-reflection, and I was emceeing an event. And at this one event I was doing for MPI, here we go with these acronyms again, Meetings Professionals International, and I was emceeing the lunches. And the speaker, who's Dr. Rob Pennington, who's since passed on, and I'm all forever grateful to him. After the lunch was over with, he came up to me and said, young man, I don't know what you do. I don't know who you are. All I know is I've been a speaker, a professional speaker for a long time. I've been introduced all over the world. And that may be the best introduction I've ever had. Your ability to command the stage, your ability to command the room, your voice, your inflections, there's some things about it. And I want to talk to you about that. Can we have coffee? And while he's talking to me, my phone vibrates. I didn't look at it until after he and I exchanged pleasantries and exchanged numbers, and we did have coffee. But it was a meeting planner who was a friend of mine, Monica, who I'm forever indebted to again, who said, hey, JB, we need to go sit down and talk about you being a speaker. I think there's something. I hire speakers. So I think there's something that you have that you need to tap into. So I had coffee with Rob. I had check ice with Monica. And for that to happen at the same day, at the same time, while I'm reflecting, was something that you lean into. And so while the transition didn't happen overnight or the moment didn't happen, that particular event, which I will never forget, really opened my eyes to a world that I had not considered. Considering back in the day, I was the kid who got in trouble for talking. Now I get paid to talk. And so there's that. Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yes.
hoping for my son, by the way, because he talks all the time. I'm like, there's got to be something that's going to happen with that mouth of yours. That's going
There,
to be for
there,
the good in the future.
there is.
So
There's
you give me
opportunity
hope.
there.
You give me hope, man. Well, and I appreciate, that story because, everyone's pivot is slightly different, right? Everyone comes into this field of entrepreneurship in a different way, and then even into the speaking and the emceeing world and the storytelling on an independent basis, we all enter it into a different way.
Right.
And it's interesting that you say that because when I think about my story and my journey, I was doing training and development in corporate America, for someone else. And I was, and this is something that I had to learn because people would often come up to me after programs and talk about, how great the program was, how, they appreciated my delivery. And I could not distinguish for a long time, was it the product and the content that I was
Right.
delivering, or was it me, the vessel, who was actually the person telling the story? In
Right.
all fairness, it was both. However, I slowly began to realize that I'm the product, right?
Correct.
Because I bring the content to life. The
Right.
words on the screen or the words on the page are only as impressionable and impactful and insightful as the person delivering the information. And
Yeah.
so that was the aha for me. But then it was, well, what does that look like outside of the 25 years that I spent, with one company, and 16 of those years doing their training and development?
Right.
And my transition was different, right? I worked in a company, as I said, for 25 years. I survived a number of reorgs, a number of layoffs, over my time with the company. And then one year, my number came up. And although it's interesting because I had gone on a sabbatical for, several months, trying to
Right.
figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? Because
Yeah.
I had been there for a while. I tell my story about, my advancement challenges, if you will. And I was like, can I do this for another 5 or 6, 7 years until it's, till I'm eligible for retirement? And was being proactive,
Right.
quite honestly. During that time off, I had the hard conversations and pulled in some good friends. One being the one James Brown from the Exchange Zone, because I went to you, I was like, hey man, how did you do this? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you and I talked about it when I was on the other side, but you stepped out on big faith, right? And with family and children and, wife and household, and being the head of their household, having to take care of it, and you made that pivot. So thank you. I want to thank you for being, that person for me. So when it was time for me to transition, not by choice, but by happenstance, it probably really was by choice, right? Because, many of us have read the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, what's next? I'm not growing within this
Right.
organization. So what's going to keep me engaged?
Right.
And I had to come to the realization that it was probably not within the organization. And
Right.
as life would have it, I got the phone call. We were going through some changes. We've all heard that. We've either been through it or
Yeah.
we've heard someone that's been through it. And
Right.
that was my conversation. And I was not freaked out. It was almost, for me, it was a sense of calm and a sense of peace that
Right.
came over me because I was comfortable.
Hmm.
I was comfortable. And someone needed to move my cheese on my behalf. But
Right.
because, of that preliminary work, I really reference it as my liberation day.
Yeah.
That was my liberation day.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to not look at it as a negative, but to look at it like this is the push that I needed to then branch out and do my own thing.
It's amazing how timing works in this. I'm listening, and I've known your story, and you helped me out when I first stepped out, and we've been accountability, business, whatever partners since. But this idea, this notion, if you think about it, you were planning to work another 5 to 7 before you retired.
Hmm.
Now 5 to 7 is nowhere even on your radar. You could work for until you just don't want to because it's
Right.
so much fun. So you take those experiences and then you apply them to wherever your giftedness is. And when those cross paths, when they meet, it's a sweet spot that just makes all the sense in the world. It's enjoyable to watch and see. And it's stressful at the same time as you participate in it. But, I've
Right.
known you and I know it, we know you can deliver. We know people all around the world know you can deliver. And so it's amazing how timing works out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna need you to come on this show like every other month so you could like, give me all of those accolades, man, because I tell you, it is, people think, oh, entrepreneurship is great. It is hard out here, but you do need, and that's a key message, that you do need your team, right?
Right. Right.
You need your
Right.
people with you that you can pick up the phone, you can bounce off ideas, they can call you and be like, "Hey, did you proofread that?" Like you need
Right.
all the
Right.
things in order to be successful because you no longer have a huge juggernaut behind you
Right.
that you can be like, "Go to graphic design and get me this," or "Oh, I
Right.
need some client research on that." We
Yeah.
are the research department.
Your legal, your marketing, your accounting, your bill collector, your travel agent, your graphic designer, web fixer, AV, uh, order all the stuff. I mean, it's yeah, the things that you
Yeah.
had behind you, your office supplies, your paper, printer, computer, microphones, pens, backpacks, trinkets, all the stuff. I mean,
All the things.
you become everything that you didn't know. Like if my website was down, I didn't even know it because I'm smart. I don't check my website every week, and I was doing something. I'm like, what's wrong with this? And then it was something about the plug. What is a plug-in? I mean, my computer's plugged in, but what are we talking about here? And so you have to have a resource of people that you can get to. So it still takes a team. It's just a different team. And if we stop and look at our database, if we stop and look at our networks, if we stop and look at those who support us, we have it at our disposal. We just have to tap into it. Hence
Right.
everybody's my customer because the photographer, because I had to do a photo shoot again last week, and demo reels and travel agents and booking flights and hotels and points and numbers,
It's a lot.
expense reports. It is.
It's a lot. And and even though we talk about all the things that are a lot in the work that we do, and it can be stressful. But I also found that the blessing for me was being able to pick my son up from school every day at 3 o'clock.
You control the schedule.
You control the schedule.
You control the time, which is one of the most valuable assets. You can never
Yes.
get that back. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you and I've had a number of conversations. You're like, you don't have to be at your desk at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, but I'm feeling like I need to be at my desk at 9 o'clock. And you're like,
Right.
but you don't have to.
Right.
So,
Correct.
yeah,
But on the flip side of that, there are times when it's 3 o'clock a.m.
that part.
and I'm at my desk, but I don't have to go get a badge and get security to open the door, or I don't have to log in. Whatever we need to do, we have to do. I mean, we
Right.
don't take it for granted, being able to drop kids off, being able to make the recitals, being able to make the karate competition at 3 o'clock without having to take PTO, or being
Right.
able to take them lunch because they said they wanted something. So you surprise them with nuggets or whatever it is that of course, that's what they want to eat.
Right. Well,
So yeah, those moments are priceless. But when
agreed.
it's time to get it, we have to
Got to
get it.
get it. We got to get it. No doubt. We're on it. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. So when you think about, your experiences in corporate America and now you transition into your entrepreneurial world, how has that, along with your athleticism, how does that help you show up, as a business owner today? How has that shaped you?
Well, as an athlete, and what I have to remember even in entrepreneurship is there were seasons of different trainings. So Usain Bolt said he trained 4 years to run 9 seconds. He doesn't just show up on the Olympic and without anything before that. So even as entrepreneurs, we have to remember NFL is starting training camps. They don't just show up for the Super Bowl. So you start the training camp, you build the base, you get in shape, you ramp up, you get ready for the game, and then you get ready for the next game, and it continues to escalate up at this pace. And so that's what it is. I have to remind myself regularly that, you've been in business, I've been in business for 5 years.
Mhm.
And I have to remember that there's steps to this. I didn't, when I was All-American, I didn't just jump out and be All-American. I had to start where I started and get better to build up. And that's where we are in business, is that same idea of building up to get ready for competition. And then once we get it, it's showtime. And so how do we make sure that we put on a show? How do we make sure we are putting on an experience for, if we're both speakers, our trainers, how do we put on an experience for our audience? How do we make sure that we're not just regular talking heads? I was talking to one of my colleagues, Dr. Will. He said, James, what we have to realize is that when you're gifted in speaking, it's different than just talking stats. You can talk facts. You can talk stats. Everybody can do that. But what do you do? What do you have that's in you that makes you different from just a talking head? And so owning that and being able to put on a show. It's edutainment. We want to educate, but we want to make sure that we do that. So how do we put on a show for the audience? Back in track, we put on a show for the crowd. We wanted to make sure we showed up, we did our best, we warmed up, we did what we're supposed to do. So you take that same mindset, that same competition, that same I'm here to handle my business and get across this finish line and do that for the clients that we engage with, or not. We call them clients, but they're really our partners. How do we partner with them to make sure that they have a great experience, their attendees have a great experience, and then we do what we're supposed to do? So that same competitive mindset, that same showmanship, that same fire, that same energy, the same nerves, the same sweat, the same preparation. I took it from athletics and put it right into the business world.
I love that. We're in edutainment, but it is the preparation that has to go into it. We just don't show up and be great, right? We have to understand who our clients are, who we're working with, who our partners are, informal as well as formal partners. We have to understand them and be prepared. And I love that. So when we think about, you talk about the exchange zone, what does it mean for someone leaving a structured, and we hit on this a little bit, but I want to dive into a little bit more. What does it mean when someone is leaving the structure of corporate America and now learning to trust themselves as the brand? Like, we are the product. It's our face that's out there.
Right. Well, it's a whole thing. It's a process. You don't just jump out there and do it without research. In corporate America, there's certain things we had where we would research, or somebody would research for us, somebody would do the work, some kind of way you had to get information about your client and gather data. It's the same thing. What is it that you bring to the marketplace? What is it that you bring in whatever industry you're going into? If it's baking pies or cookies or retail or IT, what is it that you do that you bring that the marketplace is paying for? Just because you can cook doesn't mean you need to open a restaurant, or just because you can sing doesn't mean you need to just quit what you're doing and go start a singing career. What is it that you do that you can work towards, that will make you an asset to somebody who's paying? What is it that people are paying for? And so the word in the marketplace now is authenticity. Mm-hmm. And so what is it that makes you authentic? What is it that makes you unique? What is it about you that people want to pay for? And so you have to discover that and then be comfortable with it, because we were raised, I'm dating myself, but we were raised, you go to work 30 years, put your head down, butt up. And the younger generation, the younger of us, they don't do it. They're not afraid to take the chance. So once you discover where you belong, where your skill set is, what is it that the marketplace is paying for, then you have to be ready to jump. I think Steve Harvey said the parachute doesn't open until you jump. Right. And sometimes we have to make it. It's almost blind, but it's not orchestrated leap that you've prepared for and that you have to be ready to take. Is it easy? No, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. Now, I will throw this out. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Say that again for the people in the back.
For the people in the back. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I'm learning you have to be a little bit wired a little bit differently, because every day is different. Every day is not, for me, every day is not striking it rich. For me, it's been sleepless nights and sleepless days and droughts and seems like famines and what am I doing and why am I doing it? And self-talks. And then, like you said earlier, you have the people around you who can say, just at the right time, I was just watching something you did, or I was thinking about something you said, and it works. And so we have to have those moments, but it's a whole thing. It's
a thing. I agree with you 100%. And everybody enters into entrepreneurship differently, even from me being liberated to you having, a conversation, after emceeing an event. It all looks different. And I will say that I've had conversations with friends that when I was preparing to launch my business, I did a lot of work on the back end. I went in, I got and there was an investment, right? I got a virtual assistant.
That part.
Right? People don't think, right, the investment, some people are bootstrapping, some people have, investors. It all looks different from a financial perspective. For me, I made the decision to go heavy on the marketing on the front end,
Right.
Because when I was transitioning out, in my mind, I did not have a list of past relationships that were clients or potential clients that I could take with me. So
Right.
I knew that I had to kind of get out in front and share my voice. I started out, I did 16 years on, with this one division within the company, but 14 of those 16 years was the training and development. And then the other last 2 years was in sales. So
Right.
the people that I was selling to and formulating new relationships did not know what my capabilities were on stage.
Right.
So it wasn't like, hey, I'm now out here, come and hear me if you ever need someone to come out and speak. I didn't have that. So I made the
Right.
decision to go in heavy on the marketing side. Some
Right.
people come in and they're like, I have built-in relationships. I can pick up the phone and I can get a gig or two, off the bat, where I did not feel that that was where I was. In
Right.
addition to that, I came from one of the world-renowned companies that is known for their marketing. So if I'm going to talk about the fact that I spent 25 years at said
Right.
organization, I can't come out all willy-nilly
Right.
without demonstrating my capabilities to do marketing. So mine had to align in my head. Mine had to align with the brand that I now am. And
Mhm.
then, quite honestly, the brand that I was attached to.
Right.
Now, over time, I think that that will look, differently, but coming out the gate, that's how I wanted to. What did we say? What is that show? Boom, look who stepped into the room. Like, that's
Right.
the impression that I wanted to make when I came out into this world of entrepreneurship. Um, so yeah, I think
Even
everyone.
in that, we
Mhm.
learn those there are iterations. So we have to be
Yes.
agile. I remember when you came out, and I know what you were trying to do, and it's after spending that much time indoctrinated in one philosophy, it's hard to detach yourself from that. I've gone through 3 iterations thanks to people, Glenn, the exchange zone came from a guy named Glenn. Glenn Guyton was like, "You ran track?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You don't ever talk about it." I'm like, everybody was all American. He was like, "Fool, it's 8 billion people in the world. Everybody's not. Figure out a way to talk about it." Because it was not a mention. It was not a thing. But as you have people who can pour into you, masterminds and think partners who can say, "Have you thought about this? Have you considered this? Yes, this is what you think you are, but this is what you really are." Like, I can't wait for your next iteration. I know you, and I know what's going to happen. But we have to be comfortable in that. We have to be able to own it. We have to be able to accept it. I'm a grown man who, although I ran track, I never wore tennis shoes anywhere. I wore boots. And then I got turned a certain age and tore my Achilles and couldn't wear boots. And then my son was like, "Just wear tennis shoes." I'm like, I'm a grown man. Why do I look like wearing tennis shoes with a suit on stage in front of adults? Except it worked. So now what do? I just wear tennis shoes. We jaywalking,
Look at
and
you. Look at you.
and
Right.
and so those iterations happen, but we have the ability, because we are not a big luxury ship. It doesn't
Right.
take much for me to turn. I don't have to go to well, I do, because I am marketing. I don't
Right.
have to go to legal to say, "Oh, well, I do," because I am legal.
Right.
So the ability to be agile and meet the needs of the people while being authentic is just amazing. I can turn my ship around pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that there's another iteration coming. I know it's coming. I don't know what that is yet,
I
but
know.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So I am learning that, the pivot is one of the beauties of being in entrepreneurship. Like,
That's
there's
right.
really not a lot holding you back in terms of, oh, I've done the market research, or, I've talked with my team and we think that this is a great direction for me to go X, Y, and Z. And now let's just do it. That's the exciting part. Um,
Right.
a transparent moment I have to have with you, and I think we may have discussed this, on one of our coffee, chat appointments or what have you, is, putting yourself out there is you. When you are the brand,
Right.
they're gonna either like you or they're not. And
Right.
we know that in the world in which we live, in terms of business as well as personal, but in business, that social media is necessary. It's a part of the marketing strategy, it's a part of the brand strategy. And we also know that out there in the social media world, people are not always nice. And so I've
Or
had,
honest.
or honest. Ooh, girl, you were great. And you were a hot mess. Like you split, you armed your way through a whole reel
Right.
or whatever
Yeah.
it may be, but they're going to tell you that you were great. And that's not always the case. So you have to have those true partners with you. That's one thing I would say. You would have to have those true partners with you to give it to you real. But when you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to feedback
Right.
in real time, rapid fire. There is no
Correct.
couching. There is no, let's sit down and have a review and we're going to do the sandwich model. We're going to give you good, on both ends. We're going to hide the pill and the oatmeal in the middle. No, you're going to get it straight, no chase.
Right there. Right there. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I
Yes.
think that that's important for people to know, but again, I would not trade it. When we talk about, we talk about structure, we talked about that the fact that entrepreneurship gives us freedom and responsibility. What was the biggest surprise or challenge in managing your own time?
Is that time is waiting on no one. That's the real challenge. In corporate America, you have weekly goals, you have monthly goals, quarterly goals, annual goals. I can hit my numbers annually, I can hit them quarterly, because you can map out the time. In entrepreneurship, in my world, time is number one, it's flying by. It's hard to believe that I gave my first professional speech in 2018, my first paid professional speech, and then, world shut down and things happen. But that time is not waiting. And you need to, as the young folks say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Right.
So I stay up I continue reading, I continue studying, because somebody could call and say, are you available Friday?
Right.
Are you available next week? And so that's it's not the rollies just glide. No, mine ticks. And so it feels like it's stopping, and it's hit or miss. And sometimes it's on a stopwatch where it's just running.
Right.
But, it's not, it's the good and the bad is it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
The good is it's not the same because it's not just mundane. The bad is it's not the same. Every day is different. My time commitment is different. My availability is different. I can, if I decide on a Thursday I want to go pick my son up from college, I can do it. But we have to monitor our time, because it also can be a hindrance, because you can spend so much time doing other stuff that you don't get to the basics of what you're supposed to do to build and grow the business. What you do today impacts tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter, next year. And so, you have to continue to plant those seeds and be disciplined with the time, even though you have the availability and the flexibility to do with it what you want.
Absolutely. I agree with you. The time I talked about the fact that, I have the ability to pick up my son from school at 3:00. But man, does 3:00 come by fast?
Right.
I mean, you
Right.
look up and you're just like, wait, what? So you always are in that space of how do I maximize my time? How do I balance? What does that look like in order to do the work? And going back to our previous, conversation, that is not a 9 to 5.
Right.
I had to learn that I can pick him up at 3, from 3 to 8, is family time. And then
Right.
from 8:30 or 9:00 until whatever hour, I go back to work. And
Correct.
that's something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning, right? Not feeling
Right.
guilty. I can no longer say, "Oh, I'm not a morning person or I'm not a night person," but you
Right.
are. You're
Right.
you're the person. You got to do whatever you got to do to get the job done. And
Correct.
so, having that normal, oh, I'm in bed by 10:00 is no longer normal, because I'm no longer in corporate America where I have set schedule.
Correct.
And so I think that that's important for people to understand, that your life and your time, although you have that flexibility, that you still have accountability, and that is to yourself, that is to your bank account. You have an accountability to bring in that money, right?
Right.
You have, those are things that you still have to do, even though you are an entrepreneur. My other thing I wanted to hit on is, your superpower. Your superpower is building relationships. So how have you, been intentional in building those connections, you leveraging your superpower now that you're not walking into an office every day and you have those relationships, already built in?
So who said it? I can't remember the quote, but your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. And thank you for saying my superpower is relationships. Actually, when I started speaking, that's kind of where my focus was on business relationships. And I continue to work it in Bob Beaudine's book called The Power of Who. He says every Friday he sets aside 2 hours and he reaches out to people who he doesn't need anything from, just people in his network. And we have access to 1 million people. We know 100 people. They know 100 people. So we're one person away from getting whatever it is that we're looking for. And so using my network sounds user, but it's essentially, I want to say it, but don't take it the right way. This way, it's low hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. You know, we spend so much time trying to get to Phil Knight's when you have one person who could get to Phil Knight without you going directly to Phil Knight. And right. So why not use the people who are around you to help you build? If they're going to comment, if they're going to like, they're going to say you did great, then who do you know that would benefit from me? Who can you put me in touch with? This idea, I did a post on it not long ago, but the idea of competition and collaboration can coexist. When you look at in the sports world, you know, before every race, we would, you know, dap each other up. Hey, man, have a good race. See you at the finish line. I'm going to beat you. No, I'm going to beat you. See you when we get done. We hug. See you next week. If you watch the football players now, and even now the basketball players, when they get done, they all go to dinner before games. They vacation together. They hug. They sign each other's jerseys. The kids know each other. So although it's a dog eat dog world, everybody wants to survive. It's not kill at all costs. Right. So use your network. Hey, Nicole, do you know somebody who works for said event company? Or, oh, I saw you in, you know, let's just pick a city. Let's just say I saw you speaking in Detroit. Hey, if they ever have need for somebody else, you know, keep me in mind. Or, hey, Nicole, I know somebody who's at the Orlando chapter of MPI. Give Michelle a call. And so it's give. They say if you want to receive, give more. And so I continue to, I don't mind giving people, I don't mind giving. So I surround myself with givers. The majority of my business has come from word of mouth. I have the website, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, IG, Facebook, all the X. I have all the pieces, the one-sheeters, the demo reels, the voiceover reels, but it still takes somebody to say, do you know this person? I want you to meet them. James, have you thought about this? And so we have to, and so yes, using the network, continuing to build the network, the downside to entrepreneurship, especially where we are, is we don't have to leave the office. We don't have to leave the home anymore. So then how do you build those networks? You have to be intentional about getting out, letting people, hearing what people do, and then letting them know what you do and what can I do to be a resource. And if I can't be a resource, then I know somebody who can. And that's what I just pride myself on. I stay in touch with people. I reach out to people when I don't want anything. I have birthdays in my calendar. So yeah, you can do it on Facebook, but why not send somebody hey, happy birthday. Have a great season. You know, hope to see you soon. Hey, let's catch up. You know, I haven't talked to you in 3 months, 6 months, a year. You have time for a 5-minute Zoom. Another one I've tried, and I'll throw this out there and you do with it what you want. But if it's somebody who you want to get to, instead of saying, can I pick your brain? I'll send somebody a note. Hey, how much is 15 minutes of your time going to cost me?
I like that.
But work the network, work at how it works for you. You know, I'm doing more voice memos. I'm doing more personalized things. But the network is important. People want to help you. And so give them the information they need to help you. You never know who's in what room, who can say what.
Right. My daddy used to say all the time, closed mouth don't get fed.
Closed mouth does not get fed.
So you have to leverage your network. And I agree.
Have not because you ask not. But yeah.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I say that, connections are like currency, right? The more you have, the richer you are. So you have to be able to reach out to those individuals and not just when you need or want something. And, that is so true. And I will tell you, I enjoy my social media. I that's kind of like my escape. But I spend more time now on LinkedIn than I have ever spent on LinkedIn. Like, just looking at those relationships, like you said, engaging with people, not wanting anything, but just certainly just, making it a point to let them know that I'm encouraging them and that I'm here. And ironically, to your point, my last gig that I got was from a previous client relationship that I had that had reached out to me. Like I reached out to them several months before, just checking in, see how things are going. And then several months later, they reached out to me. Ironically, or not ironically, because that's the way it's supposed to be, I'm on LinkedIn a couple days later and I run across another post from another person that I had, you know, that's a connection, that's a friend of mine. And we had not talked probably like in about 5 years or so ago. But when I made my announcement, they reached out and they said, hey, if there's anything that I can do, let me know. And when people say that, you're supposed to lean into that. You know, we be like, oh, I got it. You know, we tend to be, you know, I've got this, I'm solo, I can do all that. No, when people raise their hand or they demonstrate an interest, you know, I say lean into that. And
Right.
ironically, a couple days later, I'm on LinkedIn again, and I see that this person has a connection with the company that I am scheduled to have a meeting with in 2 days. And
Okay.
then the test becomes when you reach out to them, do they respond?
Right.
You know, so then you kind of know, like, and sure enough, this person did, which then led me to now another client relationship that came about from the relationship.
Right.
Now, going back to our previous conversation, like I decided when I launched my company, I was going heavy into marketing, I was going to do all the things and all of that. Once I made that connection, people started vetting me
Right.
through my marketing, through my social media accounts. So it's not that the marketing, it's not it may or may not result in a conversion or a lead generation. It may or may not, but it will certainly lend itself and pay for itself when they're going out there to vet you and to
That's right.
see, you know, what is she talking about? Does she, you know, does she have a demo reel? You know, what is her content all about? What are people saying? Does she have followers?
Right.
All of those things come into play. So I do feel like now which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? Don't know, but I do know that they are both necessary, and especially in this day and time.
Right.
If you don't have a social media footprint, then there's
Right.
a big question mark when
Correct.
you're out there.
People need to be able to validate you. Are you who you say you are? And one of the best ways they can do that is to go look at your social media, your, you know, and I call LinkedIn social media as well. But what is your footprint saying compared to what you're saying?
Correct. Correct. Man, did we just give like a whole one-on-one class on how to pivot from corporate American
No, look,
entrepreneurship?
I'm over here taking notes. Like,
Right?
you just taught me some stuff. I taught myself stuff.
Right. But that's what
Yeah.
it's about. Like,
And,
really, that's what it's all about. It's about teaching one another. It's about learning from one another. It's about that continuous growing, right?
that's right.
And, you know, and I said at the top of the show that, you know, this country is really pivoting, you know, in terms of, I mean, my gosh, and this is coming up next, folks, you know, 300,000 Black women have been laid off since April of 2025. And we're just at the end of July. That's 300 women. Like we're saying, oh my gosh, that's unemployment. I absolutely there's major concern in that I have. But at the same time, my other side is this is an opportunity. You've been liberated. Maybe not 100% of 300,000. And we're just talking from April to July. Mind you,
Wow.
my liberation date was a way back
Last year. Yeah.
last year
Yeah.
sometime, right?
Yeah.
Like over
Yeah.
a year ago almost. So when you start adding it up, you know, as in its totality, it's an impact, right? And some of us
Right.
have chosen to go back. Some of us have been unable to get back into the workplace. But then there are those of us who've just been like, this has been a blessing in disguise, and let me run with this.
Right.
And in my opinion, and I will continue to talk about this, that this is a time that we have to come together as a collective. And then
Right.
I'm going to have, you know, when I'm looking at, you know, hiring a communication specialist, or if I'm looking at
Mhm.
hiring, you know, someone in graphic design, my first question is going to be who are one of my sisters that has this capability
Right.
of doing this?
Correct. Correct.
Because we're going to have to look out for one another. And that's on
Right.
both ends, male and female, because, you know, again, I'm more than lipstick. This is my brand. I kind of focus in and my lens is on, you know, Black women and women in color in general, Black women specifically. You know,
Right.
what is that impact for us? And I say, how do we leverage this? Yeah,
Right.
it's jacked up. It's not pretty. I don't think, you know, the numbers are going to unfortunately potentially continue to increase. But how are we, those of us who are working or working at, how do we bring each other along?
Right.
And to your point, be ready
Right.
so you don't have to get ready when that call
Right.
comes.
Well, here are a couple of things. Control the controllables. I mean, they're just something you can't control when somebody lays you off. What you can control is your next move. And then if you have a dream, if you have a passion, if you have a desire, let somebody know. they may be able to help you. They may be able to hire you. They may be able to put you in touch with somebody else who can do X, Y, Z. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Hello.
We're in this together. We are the human race. We all bleed. We're all going to die if the Lord delays his coming. And so what do we do in the meantime? My goal, my aspiration, my dream is to be all that I'm created to be. I can't do it by myself. I need people like you. So if I haven't said it before, I say it all the time. Just thank you, not just for the podcast, but for all the stuff that you put into me. When I first started speaking, when I first was looking into speaking, I called you. And I was like, how does this work? Even though you're working for another company. And have just continued to be a blessing and pour into me unnecessarily and unapologetically. And so I appreciate that. But it takes a village. It takes a tribe.
Absolutely. And so you called me about the speaking stuff, and then I called you like, now how does this independent speaker thing work? Because
Yeah.
I don't have the juggernaut anymore. Like, what am I doing out here? And that's, and that's the thing, that people are entering at different points in time. And to your point,
Right.
there are folks out here to help you. We want to help, and we
Right.
want to grow farther together. And so it's not this competitive, bike biting. You eat, I eat. If I
Right.
can't, my mentor, forwarded me a lead last week that
Right.
led into something amazing, right? Didn't get the gig, but I made a connection. And as a result of the connection, hopefully an announcement will be coming sooner than later. That's a little teaser for the folks out there in the audience. But, you just never know. And so,
Right.
as we sum up and we wrap up this conversation, the things that I've heard is, you take your superpower, right? You identify what your superpower is, and you lean into it and you leverage it. If it's building relationship, if it's creativity, whatever that may be, you need to lean
Sure.
into whatever your superpower is. You need to start reaching out to folks who, when you don't just call them when you need something, you just call them just
Sure.
checking in to see how things are going, and
Right.
leverage that. Leverage your social media footprint. All of those
Right.
things that are out there, making sure we tell our kids, colleges are going to be looking at you. Be mindful of what you say. Well, as grown folks, people are going to be looking at your social media accounts. Be mindful of what you say.
That's right.
Right. And
Right.
just continuing to learn and to explore your passion. And you are, in fact, the brand. You are the face. You are the product. You are the brains behind it. And don't be afraid to lean into it.
That's right. That's
Awesome. What
beautifully
did I
said.
miss, man? What did I miss?
That was it. That summed up the whole thing.
All right.
That,
Well,
that was
now
good.
that now that we have summed this up, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, More Than Lipstick. It is important for us to have the diversity of voices and experience and bring it to this platform. And I
Right.
appreciate you taking the time to share your journey with us. And I'll be calling you because I got a
I'm
question,
sure.
but we'll talk later.
I am sure. Looking forward to it.
All
Hey, y'all
right.
remember, y'all stay connected. The exchange zone. Let's get it.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Have
All
a
right, thank
blessed
you.
day.
Bye bye.
Bye.